it won't share. It's giving me a weird error message that says the window is not in the front. I've never seen it before. So I'm trying it again now. Yeah, it keeps doing that, but then it gives me the message. So I'm going to test this. I'm just going to hope it works. Yep, it's giving me the same issue. Here, take a look. It says sharing is paused, so I can't control it. Check it out. Sorry for the tech issues. So none of the keystrokes actually work once that shows.
So what did you do to get it? So you had to...
I had to end it all. I had to end it. Yeah, I have no idea.
Wait, so you
doesn't share. That's the problem. Yeah. So don't know why. So if I do, I mean, go ahead and do what you would do if you were going to share this. Maybe just share the desktop. Oh, it's working. Hey, Alex Oman to the rescue. Hashtag 10K independence. Everybody follow. Finally going to get this started. So I am recording, and I see there's a message in Zoom, but I can't check that right now. I don't know if Anaya can have eyes on that. I am recording, and we can share this a little bit later. If you are joining online, hopefully the audio is working. I set up a little mic stand so it's not so awkward that you hold a microphone that doesn't amplify your voice. Just something weird about that. So hopefully this is like a little more helpful. And I think we're going to start with you, Amanda. But before we do get started, show and tell. How many of you have been to a show and tell before? All right, some. Anybody here for the very first time? Many. Welcome to Show and Tell. Show and Tell is one of the longest running events that we do at Indie Hall. We do it every third Thursday, and it's just an opportunity for Indie Hall members, friends, neighbors of the community to introduce themselves, share progress on work that they're working on, generally anything that they want to share with the community at large. And it's a great way to meet new people. So we have 3 people every time we do it. We have 3 people today. Each presenter will have 10 minutes to present, and I'll keep a little timer. I'll let you know when you have 1 minute remaining, so if you want to wrap it up from there. And then after that initial 10 minutes, you have 5 minutes for questions. So we'll go around the room. If anyone has questions, save them until that 5 minutes. And that's that. It's pretty casual from there. So I want to start with Amanda, since we have your slides already. And we're going to talk a little bit initially about Philadelphia elections. So without further ado, Amanda Feifer-O'Brien. Yeah, you guys can make noise. From here, you want to just stand back here, and then you can use the arrow keys left and right to advance.
Hello. Wow, it is weird to talk in a microphone that does not amplify your voice. Okay, I'm tall, so I'm going to adjust it up. Hi, I'm Amanda Feifer-O'Brien. I am a longtime Indie Haller, and I have a lot of jobs. One of them involves elections. I'm an elected Democratic committee person, but the talk that I'm giving today is about nonpartisan politics, and about, regardless of what your political party is, what you can do to make our elections function. So when Uncle Sam points at you and says only you can make Philadelphia elections better and safer, what he means is you can actually step up as a registered voter in any party and work in your polling place. If you have been feeling down, saddened, powerless by the things in the news, if perchance you stopped reading the news because it all seems so overwhelming that there's nothing you can do, you actually can do something. You can take action. It's the best way to get over it that I've found. And spewing webs is one option, but so is working in your polling place. If you are not super politically active, you may not be aware that Philadelphia has 2 elections every single year. Every 6 months we have an election. The election that's coming up on May 21st is a municipal election. That means city council, mayor, city commissioners, register of wills, sheriff. Our sheriff just settled, I think, another lawsuit for sexual harassment to the tune of $127,000 that the taxpayers are paying. So if that irritates you and you pay taxes here, a good idea is to pay attention. All right, so why do I think you should get involved at the polling place level? Well, one, this is where I have some expertise. I have been working as a poll worker, which poll workers are actually elected positions in Philadelphia. I've been an elected poll worker for the past 5 years, so this will be my 11th election coming up in May. And I can tell you that everything that you see pictured here, everything that's been written about in the news is something that I have personally witnessed, and I've witnessed much, much worse than this. That's why I originally wrote myself in on the ballot the first time, because I was horrified by what was happening in my polling place. So if you don't pay that close of attention, if you're just in and out, if you're lucky enough to have one of the polling places in Philly that actually just fully functions, then you might not be aware that any of this stuff is happening. I have seen votes not get tallied, a person not pushing the button and leaving the polling place. There's no paper record. There's no way for that vote to ever end up actually being counted. Can I move this back a little bit for the folks at home who are just looking at my breasts? No, this is not your fault. I'm tall. I have seen extremely long lines because polling machines have been broken or just set up improperly because polling place staff was improperly trained. I have seen willful intimidation of voters. Generally, this is all within the same political party. So when you hear about the big voter fraud that certain parties have complained about, it's not that. It's incompetence. It's people who don't understand the way that it's supposed to work because they haven't been properly trained, and personal vendettas within the neighborhood sometimes play out. So this stuff is gnarly. It definitely impacts elections. Really weird things like in the 2016 presidential election, a lot of voters registered at the very last minute. So in a functioning elections mechanism, sorry if this is boring, but I think it's fascinating. In a functioning mechanism, all of those new registrations would be immediately tallied, and then those people would be put in the voter rolls and everything would be fine. What happened, because our system was overwhelmed in 2016, was they were put on supplemental pages instead of being put in the poll book. So when you have fully trained staff who understands what they're doing, which honestly is not hard, they would have taken those pages, put them in the poll book, and then those voters would have come in and signed in normally. What ended up happening in several polling places, including mine, was that the judge of elections didn't take everything out of the box, didn't see the additional pages, and forced those voters to vote provisionally instead of in the booth where they should have. Provisional ballots are only counted if the race is close enough to warrant a recount, meaning there were people whose votes were just not counted. That's just one example of what can happen when polling place staff is poorly trained. And there are many, many more. Currently in Philly, in addition to having poorly trained staff and staff that's there for the wrong reasons, we have a massive shortage of polling place staff. By some estimates, half of the elected positions in the city are not filled right now. So we need 5,000 people, and we have far less than that who are willing to do it. And one of the things that I've come to learn over the past few years is beggars can't be choosers, right? So if you have a shortage, you take what you can get. You don't have a high standard for who's protecting your elections. You have the standard of, I need a body in the room. And that's certainly not how we want the largest Democratic city in a swing state to have its votes counted in the presidential election, if I can put my partisan hat on for a second. Okay, so in addition to ridiculously poor training, which is absolutely an issue, a lot of times what ends up happening is these roles are assigned, they're supposed to be either appointed by the city commissioner's office or the Democratic Party or the Republican Party, depending on the role, or elected. If nobody runs, what ends up happening is it gets thrown back to the ward system, which is a partisan system. So the Republicans have the opportunity to appoint their 2 roles, the Democrats have the opportunity to appoint their 2 roles, And as you can imagine, in one of the most impoverished large cities in the country, what ends up happening is that very sad amount of money that you get to work a long day, the $120 to $150 you get for the day, that ends up being like, you know, big pay in certain neighborhoods. So it's a it becomes a patronage role, and it goes to the person that does the most favors for the person assigning the role or the kind of favors that they want, rather than the person who cares about fair voting or actually wants to do this job. Certain poll workers, like I staffed the entire Second Ward's polling places, or I oversaw the staffing of it in the last election, and multiple people reported to me that there were judges of elections who were drunk or high on election day. Obviously that's like a very serious issue for those people, and like I certainly have compassion for people that suffer from addiction. But if you're showing up to do a job of this import high or drunk, then you probably shouldn't be allowed to return. Many of them will be allowed to return. A lot of people just really do not care about voting. They don't care about, as I said, I'm a partisan. I have a political role within the Democratic Party, but I also have my judge of election role. And when I walk into the polling place on election day, I could not care less what somebody's political party is. I want them to be able to cast their vote fairly. For the municipal elections, this gets to be a lot crazier because we are a one-party city, essentially. We are a Democratic city. So in municipal elections and primaries, in other words, that's when things get really crazy and people start to get really partisan and try to impact the vote. So I think, and that also goes on two sides. One, there might be some intent there. People might have a favorite candidate, or they themselves might be on the ballot, which is also, I've seen that happen on many occasions. Or they might just be so poorly trained, they don't know how to tell people how to cast their vote properly. Okay, so what can you do? You can work as a poll worker. If you are a registered voter in the city of Philadelphia, you can work as a poll worker. There is a desperate need for qualified poll workers who have 2 days a year free. It's 2 Tuesdays, that's it. You can also go to the training, which is a ridiculous joke. It's about 20 minutes, but I recommend using the online resources, which I will point you to if you decide that this is something that you can handle. The qualities that you need are to be mentally stable, capable of working a 12 to 14-hour day, capable of protecting the vote of people whose opinions you do not agree with. And that's basically it. If you are friendly and excited about voting, bonus points, but really, like, we'll take you if you can meet the other 3 basic requirements. This is just a basic overview of the roles that are there: judge of elections, majority inspector, minority inspector, clerk, and machine inspector. It's easy to be trained if you use your own mechanisms and not the actual training mechanism. You can learn how to do any of these roles really quickly and easily, I have no doubt. And I would ask all of you to please, if you have the chance to do this, if you are a registered voter, step up and help out. It doesn't have to be within your own polling place. I can help you get placed someplace else. If your polling place works really well, leave it and go someplace else that needs your help. And that's it for me.
I will take 5 minutes for questions, and I want to kick off. You are doing a lunch and learn, an extended event.
Yes.
When is that?
That is April 4th.
April 4th.
It's a Thursday, so I think it's the 4th.
Will that cover largely this stuff that
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I won't do that slide for 1 second. I'll tell you what everything is and how to know about it. Yeah. Oh, sure. His question was, am I doing a lunch and learn? And the answer is yes, I am doing a lunch and learn on this topic on April 4th, which is a Thursday. Yeah. Yes. The question is, am I a committee person and a poll worker? Yes, I am. No, it's 100% legal, which is terrible. It should not, I personally do not think that it should be legal. I worked the polls on the day that I ran for committee person. I am personally very, very invested in other people's votes getting to count. So I didn't even say my name during the day, not even my first name. I was really, I had a couple people ask me who knew I was running, trying to, like, you know, pin me on the ballot. And I was just like, shrug. But I know for sure that these, especially committee person elections, are impacted by the judges of elections. In certain cases where there were write-in competitors, the tape gets lost. That's the only record of a write-in vote. So those people lost the election, which they probably didn't, to be honest, otherwise the tape wouldn't have been lost. So yeah, I think it's a pretty bad conflict, but again, I go back to beggars can't be choosers. When there is not a person in your community who's willing to do it, like I started doing this because the person who was running my polling place was highly corrupted and was doing illegal stuff all the time, not out of like voter fraud, out of just being incompetent and lazy and kind of a jerk. And that's why I started working in my polling place. That was my first step. And then that led me on to being a committee person. In an ideal world, I've now recruited 5 new people for my polling place. We have a wonderful staff. Everybody cares about voting. Nobody's partisan. And my hope is that in the next election, I don't have to run for judge of elections, and I can let the person who's my majority inspector step up and take that job, and then I can continue to do my committee person work. It also prohibits me from doing the work of committee people are basically get out the vote agents for political parties. So they're supposed to knock doors and make sure people turn out. So I can't do that on election day because I'm inside the polling place. So my co-committee person is responsible for all voter turnout in our division that day. So it's bad on both sides. It's bad for the party, and it's also not good for people who are maybe a little bit less ethical to be in the polling place when they have a partisan role. Anything else? Yeah.
So it seems like a lot of this activity is happening specifically around election time. How much and or what kind of time involvement prior to voting day, prior to election day?
Yes.
Is involved with the effect of people. And are there other things that happen, other communications, other activities throughout the year as well?
So the question is about what the time commitment is for poll workers specifically. Okay, so for poll workers specifically, the time commitment is you have to show up at 6:30 in the morning on election day, and you generally get to leave around 8:30 at night. It's a long day. Your judge of elections will give you breaks throughout the day as they see fit. The commitment prior to every election day is to attend a training, which is theoretically an hour, but really is like 15 to 20 minutes. One of the things we're doing in the second ward is trying to create a supplemental optional training that poll workers who want to know what they're doing when they go into the polls can attend if they choose to. The other thing, this is a little bit getting into politics, but the city commissioners are on the ballot on May 21st. They're the ones that build the training, oversee elections, staff polling places. If this is something that remotely stokes your interest, please, please, please do your research. It's a 13-person race, which is super depressing for me because we picked 2, and there are 2 excellent candidates on the ballot that have a not great shot of getting in because of the large field. So, so that's part of that. And then what was the rest of it? Yeah. So for poll workers, it is pretty limited. For any human being who's interested in elections and how any of this works, there's so much stuff. It's happening all year. If you're not aware, there was just a huge scandal. The city commissioners are actually under investigation right now for the way that they chose to buy our new extremely expensive polling machines. That's been happening. There have been public comments, stuff like that going on, I think since November. But I think part of, I have a little bit of cynicism here. I'll just say very briefly that this process is opaque in part because it's better for the people in power when we don't participate. They get to keep their power. And I'm not being paranoid, like I'm in it, I can see it. It's really good for them when people don't pay attention because then they just keep getting to do things the way that they do them. They can say they're progressive in the news. They do it all the time. They're not. So you have to kind of be keyed into different organizations. I'm happy to give you a list of people that I follow to kind of stay up to date and look in, I'm on a few newsletters that I just read them. I make sure and check into those newsletters at least once a month to see what's going on. The Inquirer has good political reporters, and yeah, you can easily be involved all year round if you want to, but it definitely gets crazy. It's going to be, oh, also answer your doors. When political people knock on your doors, answer and talk to them. They will give you information that you're not going to get otherwise, especially those grassroots campaigns. They're going to send people out to talk to you, and you'll get to learn who the good candidates are that way. And I'm done.
Time for questions. Thank you very much. If you do have another question, Amanda, you can stick around for yourself. Great. This is just the beginning of a conversation. It does not need to be the end of the conversation. And if you want to learn more, April 4th, Amanda will be here again for a much longer, in-depth exploration of the topics. Great. All right. Okay, so I'm only going to come up here to change the slides and have our next presenter come up. And it's not you, Ilya. Sorry. Okay. But it is the person who looks like this. Laura, you joined Indie Hall initially like a while ago, right? And Laura just officially rejoined Indie Hall, and she's a good friend of mine, and I'm really happy that she's finally here with us in this community. And without further ado, Laura Jontz.
Hello, hi, I'm Laura. I am a graphic designer, illustrator, cat mom, and I have a lot of existential crises. So it's good to see you. These are my two cats, Mo Steph and Bjorn. Bjorn is 18 pounds and a big boy. Mo Steph is very deaf, and he loves to be held and just loves everyone. So these are my two babies. I want to get that up front that these are the light of my lives before I get into my design work. It's a very important thing to be like, my two cats. Nice to meet you. So as I said, I am a graphic designer who recently just left their job. And this is some of my work that I've done for the Philly burlesque community, which a member of Indie Hall has produced the show Bumps and Grinds. And You're Welcome, Philadelphia is an older show that I worked on as well. And so I just love making weird shit and kind of exploring the weirdness of people. So yeah. Before that, I worked at a branding agency where I worked with like alcohol companies, like Sailor Jerry's and Hendrix. Oh, did it just jump? I don't know how to. Nah, it's just locked in. Well, these are some cool logos I worked on recently. Since the 2 weeks of fun employment, where I decided to make some cute kawaii stuff for some friends. And this is for my aunt, who is in the Faroe Islands, and she is from a place called Björk. And there's more sheep than people there. And this is my show that I work on weekly called Full Front Street. It is a weekly burlesque show down at Victoria Free House every Monday at 10 p.m. So if you want to see me hosting, announcing, and stripping, 10 p.m. every Monday. And so, yeah, recently I just left my job and I came to Indie Hall to figure out what the fuck I want to do with my life. So as you can see, that's where I'm at right now. And I'm trying to just realize the fact that the normal 9-to-5 life is not for me, and to grow within Indie Hall to figure out how to thrive and make some cool stuff with people. So I made a nice little plan for myself, which will gently come on the screen in just a second. Just a second. Why am I at Indie Hall? 1, I want to meet cool people. 2, I want to collaborate with those cool people. 3, I would like to get pictures of your cats from these cool people. Dog pictures are fine. Other animals are cool. But yeah, the main reason is I do want to collaborate and make better stuff for the world and convince people that the regular 9-to-5 life is not for everyone, and you don't have to stick to that. Snaps. So yeah, thank you so much. And why won't this let me?
Is it so locked?
It's locked. It's unlocked. It's fine. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
is acceptable.
If you want to look at them again, here they are. Yes?
Talk a little bit about the difference. I know you worked for a niche before,
Mm-hmm.
and then you started working on your own. What was that shift like? What are some of the things that you're excited about versus challenges? How did that transition happen?
The excitement is being able to work in an environment that you create that's a healthier environment and working what on you want to work with. So it's just more about the independence that comes from that in creating what you think the design should be instead of what 10 other people think it should be. And so there's just more freedom within that. Health insurance. Health insurance. Other than that, I mean, not really, besides the fact of just seeing people. But again, that's what Indie Hall is you're around a bunch of cool people working on different things. So, yeah.
You've got a range of kinds of design, and you've got aesthetic. Right? Do you have particular kinds of clients that you like working for, kinds of projects you like working on? Is there like, do you have a wheelhouse that you consider a direction you need to explore,
It's full on exploring, but I mean, most of my clients tend to be more on the fashion side. So that's kind of the easy range and wheelhouse that I have on lock. But again, exploring that is kind of what I want to do right now. What's up? It is a difficult process. It's just basically sharpening yourself to always just like look at just different sites like Pinterest and like going to the museums. Just anything and everything can be inspiration and working the hours that you want to work. So like if I go to the thrift shop and look at some cool clothes and look at patterns and stuff, I consider that still working and getting inspiration. So it's just kind of taking in the world around you. I love Pinterest. I love Bjork. I love everyone who works with her. So those are my big inspirations. Yeah. Oh, I skipped. Yeah, these are some cool band posters I worked on a while ago. Thanks. All right. What's up?
Do you have an ideal project or a bucket list? Something you want to make?
Absolutely. I've been toying with the idea of like opening a CBD coffee shop. So kind of making a really cool, fun, kind of psychedelic aesthetic and just an actual like store. So that's kind of like a cool game plan I've been thinking about. Yeah.
Follow up. Can you say more about the Faro Islands?
Oh, hell.
More sheep than people?
Oh, yeah. I should have made a slide about that, but I'm from the Faroe Islands, which is in between Iceland and Norway. And there are about 50,000 people, and there are more sheep than people. And I left when I was 10, so I'm pretty assimilated into the US culture. I get some references, so that's pretty fun for me. Yeah, it's a territory and kingdom of Denmark, so that's me. What's up? Yes, it's 6 months of darkness too. Depression is real there. It's a thing. Cool.
All right.
Thanks.
Round of applause for Laura. Once again, these are just an introduction. So don't let it be the end of a conversation. Let it be the beginning of a conversation. Laura, how often are you at Indie Hall? Cool. Love it. Whenever Laura feels like it, then maybe you can talk. And if you have artwork or show posters or stuff that you want to put up, maybe we can put some of your work up on our bare walls, which would be really cool. All right, we have one more presenter, and I hesitate to use the word friend because he's not my friend, but he's been a long time acquaintance of Indy Hall, and he works down at WildBit. Does anyone here know where WildBit is? You know, obviously. WildBit, actually, back in the day, just like Indy Hall history lesson, when we were on 3rd Street, Indy Hall was in the Daniel building at 22 North 3rd, and WildBit was all the way on the top floor of that building. And they're longtime friends, and Ilya is a member of that team, and he's also a registered pilot, and he wants to tell you a little bit about that. So, Ilya Sabanin.
It doesn't show up here. Hi, everybody. First of all, to touch on Amanda's talk, I'm so glad we don't have any elections in Russia. It's a much simpler system. This seems like so much trouble. It's much more streamlined in Russia. And talking about depression, I'm from Northern Siberia. Northern Lights representing. I've seen Northern Lights since I was a kid, and it's polar nights and polar days, so all day night and all day day. It's a lot of fun. That's why I'm here. And today I am here to talk about private flying. This is me. You can find me on Twitter. If you have any questions, if you want to reach out, feel free. And the reason I'm doing this talk is for one reason only. I'm here to just inspire. I'm not selling anything, and I'm not providing any goods or services. All I want is to have more people involved in aviation because it's kind of like a dying activity. The average pilot in the US is a 50-year-old male white guy. There is no diversity. Only 7% of pilots are women. And I would really love to see more younger people, especially progressive people in the airports. It's all these old guys with MAGA hats when I go to the airport. It's pretty depressing. And so I can talk about the aviation and flying all day because it is my big passion and I love it very much. But obviously I only have 40 minutes, right? You said. And so I'm going to pinpoint what's great about flying, why does it matter, in 3 things. What I say about 3 things. First of all, flying is an incredible challenge. Flying, it really takes a lifetime to learn to fly. And even people who are airline pilots who have tens of thousands of hours of flying time, they still learn something new every day. So if you do like a good challenge, and it's kind of like, it's like an art form that you really spend your whole time polishing, flying is going to be really good for you. Second thing, it gives you a brand new perspective of the world that's really not available to 99.9% of people. You can live in your neighborhood your whole life, and once the first time you go on a small airplane and you fly about this neighborhood, you're not going to recognize anything because it's going to look totally different. Things like mountains and lakes and rivers and sunsets and sunrises and clouds, they all feel vastly different from the air. And pilots are the very few people who have a chance to experience this. And we pilots to pilot, we always talk about it, and we recognize that a lot of people live on the ground all their life and they don't get a chance to experience it. You do get a little bit of it when you fly airlines, but it's for a very short period of time, and then it goes really high and you can't see anything, and it's like it's a lot of people. And you have like a tiny window. It's a totally different experience on a small airplane. And the last thing I want to talk about is disconnection, which I don't think it's a word. Maybe it is a word. Flying allows you to literally pluck yourself out of the ground and go into a different medium. There's no cell service, there's no Wi-Fi, there's no people, there's no traffic, there's nobody else. There's a lot of traffic. People say like there's airplanes in the sky, but you are at least 10 miles away from each airplane. Or like when it's really close, it's like 2 miles, and it's like that's close. So you don't see anybody, and most of the time you don't have to talk to anybody too on the radio. You don't have to work with the air traffic control all the time. So when you fly, I really compare it to meditation, and I don't know if it's accurate because I don't meditate. But when I take off, it is such an intensive activity. It occupies 100% of my brain that I really don't have any other capacity to think about anything else. My job, my family, or anything else. It all stays on the ground. When I fly, sometimes I would fly by myself at night, and it's night, it's dark, it's the moon, it's the lights on the ground, and the hum of the engine. I'm completely by myself, and it feels incredible. It feels like you're in space. You basically plug the autopilot in, and you just float above the earth, and it's incredibly relaxing. I like it. All right. A little bit of about what kind of flying I do. This is Misha, my son. He is 6, I think, and he's been flying with me since he was, I think, 6 months old. So for him, it's completely not a big deal. If he can't take his Nintendo on the airplane, he's not going. And so the kind of trips I do, we fly. This is my wife, Natasha. And last year we went to Florida on the private airplane. And we take this airplane everywhere here in the area. We go to nearby states. We go to islands. We travel together. And it is a lot of fun. And basically, we don't have big vacation in the summer. And in the summer, every week, we go to like a small, tiny place on an airplane, and it feels like an incredible journey and undescribable. But this is also another type of flying that I do. Sometimes I just go to the airport. It's a beautiful summer evening, and it's sunset. And I just go by myself with my flight bag. I jump in the airplane. I don't talk to a single person. There's no air traffic control. There's no permission to take off or permission to land. There's no flight plan. You just literally jump in the airplane, take off, and you just fly from point A to point A. Some people start telling me like, you're crazy. But you just get to experience this. And you just float in the air, and it is absolutely amazing. And you get to see stuff like that. All right, now, I hope I inspired you guys. I see you lining up for the flight school. So let's talk about some of the meatballs in the soup. Let's talk about the coast and training, right? Because there's a lot of involved with becoming a pilot, of course. But first of all, Sport Pilot Certificate is something you can get. That is the simplest certificate to get. All in all, it will set you back about $5,000 to get the certificate from scratch. So having 0 times in the airplane, like literally tomorrow you go to the flight school, it will set you back about $5,000 gradually, not at the same time. It will take you about 30 hours of flight time, which will probably translate into about 10 weeks of training, depending how often you fly, how much time you can dedicate to that. And I don't want to say, some people say, everybody can become a pilot. And that's not true. It is difficult. As I said, it's a great challenge, but much more people can do it than they realize. Some people think it's a lot of math, it's a lot of physics, it's a lot of stuff like that. It's a little bit of that, but generally it's just the sheer will of trying to do it. And you never know until you try to fly. And the best way to find out if you can do it or not, or if you even like it, is just to try to fly and see if it goes for you. Once you get your license, you can rent airplanes. There's many options in the area. There's multiple airports. Generally, you would pay $150 an hour for an airplane, and that only counts the time when the engine is running. So if you're going to like Cape May, which will take about an hour to fly, you go there for 1 hour, stop the airplane, park it, go to the beach, spend all day on the beach, you fly back, you only pay for 2 hours of flight time. So that's $300. You also have to keep in mind that by airplane, you travel much faster. To go to Block Island from here by car, it will be about 10 hours with a ferry. By airplane, it's 1 hour and 15 minutes because I go direct. And to give you a little bit of a ballpark, typically private pilots fly around 50 hours a year. And that is that is a good number. That keeps you proficient. That gives you all the fun and all the travel you want. So some people think 1 hour is very little, but for pilots, 50 hours is a ton. These are some of the options. At the top left is a light sport aircraft, 2-seater. It's just sheer fun. You're probably not going to go distance on this, but it just gives you all the airplane you want to play with. Typically, they're cheaper to rent. Sometimes you can rent an LSA for like $80 an hour. And this is the type of airplane I learned to fly back in Russia. Top right is a glider, which is absolutely incredible because everything that could fail on an airplane already failed. You left it on the ground. The engine, the fuel system, the electric system has none of that, which is amazing. Obviously, you need like an Angry Birds situation to get in the air, and they do actually use like an Angry Birds thing to get in the air. They also use tows. So flying gliders is amazing because there is no engine, there's no hum, there's no fuel, it's just the wind, your wings, and you just fly. And it is amazing. But obviously, you're not going to go far. You're going to stay around the airport. But skillful glider pilots, they can stay in the air all day. So you glide, you find a thermal, you use it like an elevator to go up, and you keep flying. You can fly all day. We have a Philadelphia Glider Council, which is an incredible group of people located in the burbs, 1 hour away from Philly. You should, if you're interested, give them a call. Most of them are airline pilots who are tired of driving Airbuses, and they come to do this, and it is absolutely incredible. The first flight is free. So if you're interested in doing that, You can come to the airport. I think they start flying in May, and you can literally get a day trip out of it and get a free glider flight. It's a no-brainer. Bottom left is a four-seater general aviation aircraft. That's a similar one to the one I fly. It's a little more expensive to fly, but this gives you ability to go distance. I took the plane like this to Florida, as I said, which was the longest trip I've made so far. Right bottom corner is helicopters, and they are terrifying, and they will murder your entire family in sleep. That's all I can say about helicopters. No, actually, helicopters are fun, and they're fine, but they are prohibitively expensive, unfortunately. I flew a helicopter once. I really loved it. About $350 an hour, and the training is longer and more involving. So to wrap it up, what you can do this weekend, next weekend, depending on the weather, you can do what's called a discovery flight. Some people don't realize that you can do your first training flight just by calling the flight school. You don't need to have any permissions or paperwork or any documentations at all. You can call the flight school. You can schedule a discovery flight. It's going to set you back about $150. And what's going to happen is you're going to come to the school. You're going to talk to the instructor. You're going to jump in the airplane. You're going to sit on the left seat, which is the pilot and command seat. And the instructor is going to sit on the right seat. You're going to have all the controls in the aircraft. You're going to have a stick. You're going to have throttle. You're going to have rudder, everything you want. And instructor will let you control the aircraft as much as you're capable of. So if you are capable of taxiing the aircraft on the ground, the instructor will let you taxi the aircraft. If you're capable of taking it off, you will take it off. Obviously, he's shadowing you, and he is ready to intervene if something happens, like if you do something stupid. But basically, you get to fly the airplane all the way. You're going to get to fly it at altitude, do some maneuvers, some basic stuff. It does not involve aerobatics. Some people think, oh, flying smaller plane means, some G-force. There's going to be people throwing up. Shit is flying in the air. It's not like that at all. I actually don't like aerobatic flying. I tried it many times. Every time I come back from it, I feel like I don't understand why people enjoy the G-forces. It's going to feel like a kayak. So if you think about like a big airliner feels like a ferry going through a river, and a small airplane is going to feel like a kayak. So it's going to float a lot in the atmosphere, but it's going to be a lot of fun for you doing that. So I really challenge you, not challenge. What's the other word? I invite you. I encourage you. Make a day trip out of it. You're going to go to the airport. There's airplanes coming in and landing. It's just beautiful. Pick a good day. Have a discovery flight. Go on a flight. You can take a passenger with you. You can take a friend or a +1. It can be like $50 more to do that. They'll sit on the back, and then you'll have great pictures from the air and stuff like that. Another option, as I said, the glider console. Give them a call. Amazing people, and get your free glider flight for free. Free glider flight for free. And if you have any more questions, I'm more than happy to talk to you about airplanes anytime that they call me at 2 a.m. I will give me a few minutes to wake up, and I will tell you everything about aviation you want to know and you don't want to know. And sometimes I can give rides to people on airplanes. We can go to the airport. I can introduce you to instructors. I can recommend you a flight school. I can introduce you to glider people and stuff like that. Okay? And I think that's the last slide. Yes.
All right.
How was time-wise?
Great.
Great.
So we'll take a couple of minutes for anyone who has questions.
Why is a helicopter expensive? Because nobody knows how they work, and only a few people in the world can put them together, and it's just more complex. The aircraft, because of the wings, wing is an amazing invention. It's just like the lever and the wheel. The wing is absolutely simple. As you see, the glider has no systems, just the wings. And wing always works. If you take everything away from the aircraft, it can still fly. Airplane wants to fly by default. And there's been actually an amazing case. There was a fighter pilot flying a jet, really complicated jet. And he got into the clouds, he got all confused, he got a vertigo. So he completely like, okay, I can't control this, I gotta bail. He bailed out, and the aircraft fixed itself up and landed safely. And they repaired it. It's called the cornfield glider or something like that. It basically glided back to the earth, ran out of fuel, landed, pancaked in the cornfield. They repaired it and was flying after that for many years to come. Because the plane wants to fly if you don't screw with it too much. And there's another thing called pilot-induced oscillations. So helicopter does not want to fly, on the opposite. Helicopter hates flying. It's like a big refrigerator that for some reason is in the air. And because it has to constantly be working because the rotor has to be rotating and the tail rotor has to be rotating for it to fly. If you take the handoff stick on a helicopter, that's not going to end well. On a plane, you should be able to take your hands off stick and the plane should be continue flying. Otherwise, you're not doing a good job as a pilot trimming it. And that's why it's more expensive because there's more systems involved and like it's more precision. They get more maintenance stuff and stuff like that. Yeah, so the time it takes to become comfortable. This is very, very personal. Sometimes people get comfortable even before trying to fly. You're like overconfident, overcomfortable. I was probably getting pretty comfortable in the airplane at about 200 hours of total flight time. But the deal with flight training is that if you just like flying, you don't even have to pursue a pilot license. You can just keep flying with an instructor. And it's basically your backup plan. It's your, I know people like that. They even have pilot license, but they still feel better when there's a CFI sitting next to them. The CFI is a certified flight instructor. You're going to pay him, of course, him or her, something like $50 an hour, but they can just sit there and don't do anything except for just monitor and be ready to intervene. It's a pretty good job. But if that makes you feel better, you can do that until you become, okay, I feel confident I can do it. I hope that answers the question.
How many hours a year do you usually fly?
I try to fly 100 hours. Merrick is another pilot here. He flies 50. He thinks I'm crazy. But I just like flying. So I try to fly every week to stay very proficient. Because I'm all about safety. And when I fly with my family, I understand that I take their life in my hands. And that's why I invest a lot into my training. I do recurrent training all the time with CFIs and stuff like that. And I approach it very, very seriously. Say again? What age? So what age you can start flying? So glider, you can start flying at 14. Which is incredible. I went to Glider Club and they have like this kid. And I was like, yeah, I came for like, a ride. And he's like, oh yeah, take him up. I was like, this guy? And he's like 16 or something like that. But he was an amazing pilot. Glider pilots actually make amazing pilots because again, everything, they don't have all the stuff that we are afraid to fail. When I fly airplane, I'm afraid of my engine failing. But glider pilots don't have an engine. They always fly like, okay, there's no engine. So airplanes, 16 years. I think you can start training 16 years. I think sport pilot license, you can get a license at 16. So earlier than driving the cars. And it makes sense because when you fly, there's no other traffic. Because on cars, you go on a highway and it's kind of like, okay, well, it's 50-50. I'm a good driver. But that lady with her wheel comes off of her pickup truck because last time she did maintenance was like Carter administration. And, and it's kind of, now it's my problem because that wheel, I'm American now. What do you want from me? Brezhnev administration. When you fly the aircraft, most people up there competent and professional. And that's why it's a pleasure to speak to those guys on the radio. Everybody knows what they're doing, which is beautiful. And there's no police up there. So whenever you screw up, it never happened. This is one of the beautiful things about the United States is that flying still provides an insane amount of freedom. Some people think it's like, oh, you need to file a flight plan. You get permission from somebody. You ask for like takeoff. It's not the case. You literally go, you fly any direction you want. You don't talk to anybody if you don't want to. It's a bad idea from safety standpoint, but you can do it. And again, there's no police. Obviously, you should behave, of course. But, it is what it is. Yeah. It's a great question. Great question. I'm based out of Doylestown. I'm a member of a flying club, so I don't rent because it's too expensive. So basically, it's 16 dudes. Fortunately, it's all the same dudes, and they own 2 airplanes. So we are nonprofit. So every money we put into the flying hours is to maintain the aircraft. Most of the airports in the United States are municipal airports. That means you guys pay for them. We all own them. And the same way that nobody can prohibit you from using a bridge or a sidewalk because it's a public property, nobody can prohibit you from using JFK Airport because JFK Airport is a public municipal airport that you pay for. And I too, actually now. So you can take your small airplane and you can go to JFK, and they cannot prohibit you from landing. They will make it difficult for you because they have a lot of airliners coming in. You're gonna be like, oh geez, boy, you're gonna be like flying 2 hours in waiting to get in, of course, but that's understandable. But you can do it. And so if it's a public airport, all you need to do, you do a due diligence, make sure the runway length is good for you, make sure there's no, like the airport is not closed, all of that stuff. And you just go there and you land, and that's it. Sometimes, depending on the municipality, they would have a landing fee, but usually range from $5 to $30 or so. So it's a non-event. I go to Ocean City, New Jersey, and I pay less to park my plane than I do to park my car. And I go to New Jersey, Ocean City, and I walk to the beach from the airport. You just literally walk, and it's absolutely amazing. And if driving a car to New Jersey feels like a chore, it feels like, it's a commute sitting in the highway. Flying feels like a journey. Like you just got there, but you already feel like, oh, that was amazing. We got such a flight. And you feel accomplished because you did like a mission. I like it. It's a lot of fun.
So that's about time.
Another question? No, hold on. Florida, yeah. So we flew to Florida. We flew through like West Virginia to Chattanooga to Panama City. So it was a panhandle situation. And we flew western side, and on the way back, we flew eastern side. So we did like a big flying trip. And we stayed at like tiny, shitty hotels because we didn't want to resort or anything like that. And we spent basically 5 days flying the eastern coast. And it was amazing. It was absolutely incredible. All right.
Great. Give a round of applause to Ilya.
Thank you.
That is our show. That is our show and tell for this third Thursday in the month of March. We do show and tell every third Thursday, so we will do this again in April. I think the date is April 17th or maybe the 18th. If you would like to give a show and tell, if you know someone in the community or maybe who is close to the community but not an indie hauler who would like to give a show and tell, you can speak with Anea, you can speak with me. We would really be happy to do it. We're constantly looking for people, members and friends alike, who want to give a show and tell presentation, and cost nothing. Great way to say hi to folks and great way for people to get to know you. As just a point of detail, Ilya took me up in his plane a couple years ago, and it was genuinely one of the most liberating experiences that I didn't know you could do. I didn't know you could participate in that. So I really encourage you to talk to Ilya more about that if you're curious, even if you just want to ride, not fly yourself. And I encourage you to talk to Amanda, and I encourage you to talk to Laura about their presentations as well. And we'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody.